Hey guys, Jeremy back again from Direction Plus, and today we're installing a kit on a 4-cylinder Amarok. So here we have the ProVent 200 and we have the bracket for the Amarok. So the bracket picks up one mounting point just here on top of the radiator support panel behind the headlight, and there's a torque head just underneath on the side of the radiator that you need to undo. So with the M6 bolt, just loosely secure the top of the bracket through the radiator support panel. So that's loosely put in place. And reusing the existing torque screw that you took out of the side of the radiator panel, reinstall that. So at times it's easier to install the drain into the bottom of the ProVent before you put the ProVent in, so that way you don't have to try and stick the hose out from underneath the car. Okay, now with the ProVent bracket in place, you'll need to mount the ProVent. So out of the box, the ProVent's not orientated in the correct direction, so you'll need to undo the clip, rotate the ProVent around, like so. So you'll notice that when the pipes run through, they run straight across the top of the engine bay. So just make sure that the inlet and outlet pipes are facing square with the front of the vehicle. Okay, so now with the catch can in place, we want to put on our 25 to 16 millimeter reducers and spring clamps. So now we'll install two 16 millimeter 90 degree connectors into the ports, inlet and outlet ports of the ProVent 200, facing up. So these 16 millimeter spring clamps, they are a snug fit, so it just takes a little bit of patience when you're putting them on. We changed over to these instead of a normal worm drive clamp, so people didn't end up over tensioning, and also if the hose ever shrinks, that the clamp also continuously tightens. It's not a fixed tension. So now that we have the inlet and outlet pipes installed, we'll put in the two 90 degree connectors to run the hose across the top of the engine bay. So when installing these, points to note, just make sure that when you put in the connectors and that they are actually in line in the direction of travel that you want to run the hose. Make sure that the hoses aren't twisted or anything, because under heat and vibration, sometimes the hoses can break because they're under constant tension. So because this particular vehicle has a aftermarket intake put on it, just here, we have to change the pipes a little bit different to what we would with a normal standard installation. Standard installation, we would just remove these plastic couplers off here and then reattach them to the end of the supplied hose, and then connect them up as they were in the factory installation. So this installation is a little bit different to what you might see on your particular vehicle. So as you can see, this is the return hose from the crankcase ventilation system that I've just removed, and that's the oil that we're trying to, or that we do remove when fitting a ProVent. So we stop this oil from re-entering back into intake, and the soot sticking to this oil, that's what causes your inlet manifolds to clog up and reduce performance. So we're going to remove these plastic fittings from the factory bypass hose. Now, to remove these, you can either use a hot air gun, or you can use some hot water. And all we're trying to do is to soften this plastic up so we can pop these fittings out. When removing these from the vehicle, you'll see these two knurled parts. So you just need to push these together, which will release the clips. If you happen to break these right there, you'll need to go back to Volkswagen, get a new hose, because these clips won't stay on anymore after you've destroyed that. So that's the connector removed. no damage done to the hose. Just be mindful, it is plastic, it is high temperature plastic, but it is plastic nonetheless, so just be careful. Once heated up to an appropriate temperature, they do pop out quite easily. Hang on to this part in case you ever want to remove the catch can for any particular reason. It'll save you having to go back to Volkswagen and buying a new one. So as I said before, because of the aftermarket intake, we only require to use one of these for this particular installation, but you will need to remove both for a standard install. So here we are, this is the hose. I'm going to connect this one from the outlet of the ProVent. So that's coming from the bottom of the ProVent back to the intake on the engine. So this hose here, this is part of the hose that goes from the crankcase to the ProVent. So it'll connect to the top port on the ProVent, which is the inlet for the ProVent, run across the top of the radiator, and then we will join it back up. So as mentioned before, this is the factory connector, which will go back into the rocker cover, and this is the hose that will eventually connect from the inlet to the ProVent back to the rocker cover. Okay, so with both the inlet and the outlet hoses of the ProVent connected up correctly, there's only one thing left to do, and that is to install the drain and locate and secure the drain. Just with a couple of notes, I've turned all the spring clamps around so the sharp edges are facing down. A couple of things, looks a little bit neater. Secondly, if you have to stick your hand in here for some reason, or put your hand across the top of the engine bay for some reason, you're not going to scratch yourself on these clamps. As for securing the hoses, just a hint, only if you wish to. Try and pick up some existing points that you can zip tie your hoses to, but generally what I do is I'll wrap one zip tie around both hoses loosely, and then I'll get another zip tie, run it around the zip tie that I just put in and in between the hoses. And zip tie that up tight. And just making sure that you snip off the excess, just so it's nice and tidy. So the reason for doing that is it keeps the hoses separated, so there's a little bit of an air gap in between there, stops the hoses rubbing together. It also looks pretty neat. Right there guys, so that's the ProVent installed on the Amarok. Hope you enjoyed the video. And just remember, service intervals, so changing the element is every 40 to 50,000 kilometers, and you have to drain the element every 3 to 5,000 kilometers, but depends on the engine and how much blow-by you have. So thanks for watching.